Either?
Well, hello everyone. Welcome back. And tonight we will be looking at this new book. So this is a new book that you can get on Amazon, To Heaven and Back in One Night. And it's official. You can order it. So tonight we are going to read a half hour's worth. And we're just going to start reading chapter 1. So the book started out, I'll let it speak for itself. It's started out just kind of me writing my story back a year ago, last January. And that's when I started to wake up writing this book. So I got about 3 months in and I wrote a bunch of stuff. And it was just all angry stuff. So I said to my wife, I can't publish this. It's just, I actually started right over 3 months in. And then I said, I'm going to write well, my wife recommended that I maybe throw a few fictional characters in. And maybe I could speak and get my thoughts out through fictional characters. So it ended up, what does everyone want with the Watchtower Society? They want to take them to the cleaners. They want to take them to a trial. And how do you do that, right? So in this book, we got to go to heaven. And we got to go in front of Jesus, and there was a whole trial. And so the governing body, not them, but the founders got resurrected, Russell and Rutherford. And I'll leave that for you guys to read. But here's how the story starts. Chapter 1. It's called Disquieting Thoughts. Here it is. Not again. For crying out loud, it's 40 below and this old tractor just won't work in this cold weather. I'm stalled at the front gate again trying to push out the snow, and the tractor will not start. It's a 1960 Massey work bull, and it's a little older than I am. It was a good tractor in its day. I can at least fix it. But it's just cold, too cold to do anything. I know there is no way to tow this with the pickup truck. If I call anyone, it will be $300. I just know it. Damn tractor, old piece of junk. I stomp back to the house up the long driveway and the wind is howling even harder. We're now blocked in and there's no way in or out until I move the tractor. My mind goes negative. Why do I have to use an old antique tractor anyways? I'm pushing 60 years old. You'd think I could have saved up enough money to buy something a little newer with a cab and a heater. I spent all those 30 years putting every last dime into that religion. If I would have known the truth when I was 18 years old, I wouldn't have spent 30 years of my prime life peddling their damned religion. The wind is now howling and the snow is blowing up into my face. The temperature has sure dropped. I guess a storm has set in for the rest of the day. During my long walk back up the driveway to the house, I start thinking about all the negative stuff that happened to me in the religion. I get myself worked up. And aloud, I start to use profanities, swearing about the old memories. Realizing I'm getting close to the house now, I hope she didn't hear me. I'll try to smile. I don't want her to know my thoughts. Hello, dear. I had another cold walk up the driveway. I'm sorry I couldn't plow us out. The damned old tractor won't run in this cold weather. It stalled at the end of the driveway, and now with this storm blowing in, I'm not sure what to do. What's wrong, sweetie? What happened? It's just too old of a tractor for these cold winters, and the gas tank must have water in it. Shaking my head as I take all my winter clothes off and rubbing my hands together to get the blood circulating again, I look up and I see her face. And I just know she can see my anger. I hope she didn't hear me ranting and swearing up the driveway. She's looking at me like she knows. So I better say something. I'm sorry about my anger, dear. It's just, never mind, it's complicated. She looks at me with some concern. Honey, what is it? Please tell me. I want to hear what's going on inside you. I know it's more than just that old tractor. She grabs my hand and leads me to the armchair. Come into the living room and sit by the fire. Then tell me how you feel. It's hard for me to explain, dear. You have not been in that Jehovah's Witness religion and wasted a whole life. My worldly family won't even talk to me. I ignored them all those years when I was going to the Kingdom Hall, and now I have no relationships. My old acquaintances from the Kingdom Hall all think I'm demonized or weird. We've been married for 7 years, and how many of my old friends or family have you ever seen? Very few, and seldom at that, because they demonized me and passed that around from one congregation to the next. Think about it. If you were my worldly family and tolerated me pushing my religion down your throat for 30 years, would you have anything to do with me after I quit? No, because you're not foolish, and I am reaping what I have sowed. I just know it's God's law of attraction. Whatever you put out comes back to you. I'm sorry, dear. I should not unload on you like this. It's not fair to you. Honey, it's good that you want to deal with this. You know, every cycle on Earth is within 7 years. And now, with 7 years under our belt, you should feel safe to talk. Look at the bond of trust and love we have between us. That is worth more than any old tractor. Those old associates are not in your life when you started to explore new ideas. Don't blame them. It's beyond their boundaries. She walks over to me, sits on my lap, puts her arms around me, and says, "Besides, sweetie, that old tractor can sit there until the snow melts. We have everything we need on this old farm. Sit by the fire and enjoy this tea I made you. It has peppermint schnapps you like." "Thanks, dear. You're so understanding." I take a drink of the tea. The tea is perfect. I love peppermint schnapps. It just warms up my body. I look over at her and say, "I want you to know, dear, I sure do love you. You are very understanding. I don't know what I'd do without you." She crosses over to my desk and brings over my laptop and hands it to me. "Honey, I thought this winter would be a good time for you to write that story of your life. You have said you wanted to write about your feelings when you were a Jehovah's Witness. Perhaps pretend like you're telling your old friends a story about your feelings. Maybe write a little bit of a fairy tale, but keep it light. Don't get angry anymore. Remember, what we put out comes back at us." She smiles and kisses me on the forehead. "I'll stoke up the fire, and I'm going to bed early. Just come to bed when you're done." I watch her crouch down to stoke up the fire with more wood, and she turned and smiled, and then went to bed. "Good night, sweetheart. I will try to write something." I sit there for quite some time, thinking about how lucky I am to have such a good partner in life. Now what to write? My mind is blank. I started to think about the last 10 years and how fast it rolled by, still not sure what to write though. I pulled out the laptop, blew off the dust, and powered it up. I can't remember when I last checked my emails. It's all junk mail anyways. Oh no, it wants to do an update. I hope this goes smoothly because I do not want to wake up my sleeping beauty. She is the IT person in our house. Oh no, the computer wants me to click a box. What should I do? Okay, I'm just going to click yes for the cloud. Now what's this thing doing? It shows a bunch of clouds rolling by with words, updating on the screen. I watch for a bit. It's kind of mesmerizing. The clouds rolling by on the computer screen. I'm getting tired. This has taken forever. I'm just going to sit back in my chair and close my eyes for a moment while it completes its update. My head sinks into the backrest of the armchair, and the fire is warm. The storm is sure blowing. I close my eyes and start to think about my life and why I get angry so often. I hear that banging noise again. I hope my solar panels do not blow over. At least I installed that battery backup this past fall, so I'm a bit prepared for the tribulation. I just know we have been in the Great Tribulation for a few years now. Everything is so different since the virus. I know Jesus says this is just a warning of what's to come. Last summer, we endured a heat wave of plus 40, with air conditioners knocking out the power grid. Now we are experiencing temperatures of minus 40, and it's only the end of December. The weather sure makes me wonder, what's happening to our planet? The climate change is happening more quickly than expected. The wind is still howling outside and the snow is blowing fiercely. I wonder if I shut the shop door, or is it flapping in the wind? I sure hope it's not Armageddon. I'm not ready for it. Bang, bang, bang. Then the noise stops, and then starts again. If only I could get those thoughts out of my head. Since quitting the Kingdom Hall, they have all judged me, saying I have fallen out of the truth. I've said many prayers about this and still feel alone spiritually. I realize that I have not said a prayer in a long time. I always used to sleep well when saying a prayer at night. My wife is so good about saying I love you, and then she goes right to sleep. My mind is worried as I lay back into the chair, but the warmth of the fire counters with the common effect. I crack open one eyelid and I see the computer is still updating. All I can see are clouds rolling by on the screen. It's been a while since I used it last, so it must have a lot of updates to do. I will just sit here and enjoy the fire with my eyes closed for a while longer while it updates. Maybe that schnapps has kicked in now, as I'm all of a sudden feeling very tired. That banging noise outside is getting louder, and I'm just too tired to move. These dark thoughts will not leave my mind. Perhaps I should just try saying a prayer. How does that Lord's Prayer go, anyways? I cannot remember. Something like, Father, give us food, and forgive people, or something like that. Oh, no, it's not working. I can't remember those formal prayers. I think to myself, I'm just going to talk to God. I can do it. I just have to imagine God is next to me, listening, as my best friend. I know you are in my life, God. Look at my wonderful wife you helped me to find. I know, God, it was you that helped me through all those tough years. Oh Lord, oh please, God, if only I can be free of these negative thoughts about the Kingdom Hall. I lay there for some time, thinking about my spiritual darkness, and I try another prayer. God, can you please help me with all these disquieting thoughts? There are too many to remember, but please, God, if you could calm my mind and help me through this night. I've had not slept in so many nights, and my body is getting tired. So please, God, help me. I can feel something dripping down the side of my cheek. Could they be tears? I'm not sad, but more tears seem to flow. Bang, bang, swoosh. I hear a fluttering noise above me. I could feel an arm clenched tightly around my waist as I was lifted out of my armchair. By the time I opened my eyes, we were in the sky and accelerating high up as we glide in and out of the clouds through the darkness of the night. Suddenly, we lurch up through the clouds, soaring up to the stars, and then my mind went blank. When I came to, we were descending slowly, and I could hear the fluttering noise of wings. When my feet touched solid ground, I looked around, and I could only see white wings disappearing into the darkness. I stand there and take a deep breath. The air is crisp and clean, and the temperature is moderate and comfortable. There's a slight breeze refreshing the air around me, but the darkness is overwhelming. The last thing I remember was updating the computer, and now I'm wondering what happened. Did I click the wrong box? Perhaps the storm knocked out the power, and that is why it is dark. I'm standing, it's dark all around. What were those white things I just seen? It must be my imagination. I better warn my wife. Sweetie, can you hear me? Is the power out? Honey, are you asleep? It is still dark, and so I cry out. Hello? Anyone out there? Is this a dream? My voice echoes back at me as if it's bounced off a canyon wall. Again, I call out, hello? All I hear is a reply that echoes, hello, hello, hello. Chapter 2, Two Roads. I open my eyes as wide as I can to take in the surroundings, but nothing. I look all around and I see nothing but darkness. I close my eyes for a moment and open them again. And the darkness is now overwhelming. I start to panic, not sure what to do. I frantically pray, "Please, God, do not leave me in darkness. Please help me, God." I look all around and it's dark, but then I see a faint glimmer through the fog and head towards it. As I walk through the dark, rolling fog, the light slowly gets brighter and brighter. I continue walking for some time and then arrive at an area all lit up. I see people gathering in front of a large gate. A rock wall separates the darkness from the light inside the gate. The gate is a rock archway opening with cobblestone paths leading into it. It is big enough to drive a large bus through, and engraved into the rock archway it says, "Welcome to Mid-Heaven." I noticed many dozens of people wearing white robes, coming out of the darkness carrying palm branches. They all continue walking through the archway as if they knew where they were going. Walking in amongst the crowd, my eyes are immediately drawn towards a man without a palm branch and a robe, dressed in ragged clothing, frantically looking around and confused. His hair was long and unkempt, and he had dark circles under his eyes, under his sad-looking eyes. He had the beginnings of an unkempt beard. It looked like a couple of weeks' growth. Once I got close to him, he abruptly turned around and bumped into me. I fell backwards a bit and I said, "Sorry, my friend, I was in your way." He put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Thank God, someone to lean on. Can you tell me which way to the courtroom?" He further explains, "My angel just dropped me off after my hearing and told me to walk back into the darkness to the nearest Kingdom Hall. There is no way I'm going back to a Kingdom Hall when I'm this close to seeing Jesus and getting this resolved once and for all." He didn't even give me a flashlight. I looked surprised and said, I'm also lost. I'm trying to figure this out myself. Do you know how this works and where you are going? He answers, "I'm going to mid-heaven. I'm not going back." I looked at the man with sympathy, and he continues to explain his situation like he had no one else to talk to. He states, "My prayer was answered tonight, and I had a hearing, but I was denied high court." He says, "Thinking back to my committee meeting a couple of weeks ago, those elders were wrong in their decision. I should have had another chance. I accidentally cheated on my wife just like the other brothers at the party. I've been sleeping in my car for a few weeks, and I'm completely wore out. And I'm going to get this sorted while I'm up here." I questioned him further. "How did your prayer get you here?" He said, "I've been praying hard to Jehovah for this past week about how unfair the elder bodies are. My friends also did the same thing at the bachelor party, and their elder bodies did not disfellowship them. Like I said, my friends all did the same thing. I'm wondering why I got disfellowshipped for the same offense." He leans into me, still with one arm on my shoulder, and he starts sobbing. He cries for a bit, and I was not sure what to do, so I pat his back, consoling him, like I used to do with my children. He stops crying and looks up and wipes his nose with his shirt sleeve. His eyes were now tear-free, and he says, "When I first met with my angel, they said I did not qualify for high court." I ask, "Why is that?" They said it's because I was the party organizer and chose the entertainment. They claimed I planned the event. My argument was, and still is, we all made the same choice at the party. I sang them a little song. I sang them my little song. Temptation is in front of us all, even the elders in the Kingdom Hall. I chuckled in the meeting, and I thought it was a funny, but not one elder cracked a smile. Who cares anyways? They think they're so perfect. His eyes bugged out, and he continued to rant about his dilemma, saying, "I even asked a bunch of them, if we commit the same sin, why not the same judgment?" They were all dumbfounded, and they disfellowshipped me for my bad attitude. He stares off into the darkness and says, "The angel wanted me to go back to the Kingdom Hall to resolve this, and he said I need to sow humility, but I am not going until things are fair. My plan is to take this unfairness to the high court, and when I get an opening with Jesus, I'm going to bear my grievance, and I know he will change things. I just know it." Upset and irritated, the guy stomped off through the archway and followed the crowd down the big pathway. I stood off to the side, watching all the people come out of the cloud into the lit area, and they all disappeared down the big pathway. An angel was handing out palm branches to those without one. I noticed the disfellowship guy had doubled back to the lineup, butted right in, and had a few words with the angel, and then didn't get a palm branch. He made a few remarks about favoritism, and then left the gate and stomped off down the big pathway. I stood off to the side for a few moments and continued to watch people come out of the cloud and walk down the big pathway. This reminds me of that scripture that says, "Go in through the narrow gate, because broad is the gate and spacious is the road leading off into destruction, and many are going in through it, whereas narrow is the gate and cramped the road leading off into life, and few are the ones finding it." I decide to ask the angel why I don't have a palm branch. I walk up to him and I noticed he is clean shaven, whereas the other angel that brought me here had a beard and long hair. This angel has shorter, neat black hair combed to one side. His tanned face is radiant, and I catch his smile for a moment while he hands out palm branches to people as they walk by. I notice he reaches behind him where the palm branches are all stacked. I decide to wait until the crowd of people get through the line and then make my way over. "Hello, sir." I pause. I'm caught off guard for a moment by his warm, inviting smile, and then I ask, "Do I get a palm branch?" His smile disappears. He looks at my aura, and he sadly says, "No, I'm sorry, sir. You do not qualify. You are not one of the conscious ones." I notice others waiting behind me and quickly step aside to let them through to get their palm branches. They each get one, and then move on so the angel is free to talk again. I think to myself, conscious ones? I wonder if I'm unconscious. Perhaps I'm in a coma. I ask him, "Please, can you help me understand what is happening to me? Am I dreaming? Please help me to wake up. Is there another way out of this dream?" His sad face lights up. He smiles and says, "Why, yes, but you will have to pray for it. Many of our guests say a prayer to God when they are not conscious, and only God can show you your way out of this place. But you must have faith." I see a group of people coming over, and the angel grabs another palm branch. He smiles at me, and I smile back. I stand off in the distance, and I watch him for a while. He reminds me of the young brothers at assemblies handing out programs as everyone walks in the doors, and only baptized publishers get a copy of the new book or pamphlet. I guess I have been away from it all for a while. I have lost touch. Chapter 3, The Road to Life. I stand for a moment, looking back at the darkness, wondering what to do. I decide to say a prayer, and all of a sudden I see a slight glow in the distance. Reluctant to leave the well-lit area, I decide to take the first step back into darkness. I walk back through the darkness to a small glimmer of light. I finally get up to the light and notice two rocks on a small cobblestone path glowing. I step onto the path and it lights up a few feet in front of me. I take my foot off and the light goes out. It's an old cobblestone path made out of formed rocks with weeds growing in between them. I knew the path was hardly traveled and there is darkness all around. Something inside tells me to keep going, so I step forward on the path in the direction of the light and dare not to walk off the rocks. As I move forward, the path lights up and then behind me goes dark. I walk along the path for some time. It's about as wide as what a chariot could travel on. After several miles, I could no longer see the glow from the broad and spacious walkway. I feel all alone in the middle of nowhere, and then I see the path narrows, and there are guide ropes on each side. I lean on the large rock supporting one of the guide ropes and take a rest for a while, noticing the other rock next to me supports the other side. I walk onto the narrow and cramped walkway, and it feels solid, and it's only a few feet across, about half the width of a sidewalk. The small path is so narrow and cramped I almost have to slide sideways, but manage and keep walking. I wonder if it's made for children, so I'm concerned, will it hold me up? The darkness on each side is overwhelming, and I stop to rest, and when I'm sitting on the rock path, my legs dangle below into the darkness. I can feel a hot breeze blowing, and this makes me curious. Lying on my stomach, I can reach all the way around and grab my other hand, but cannot feel any wires or electronics that would light up the rocks. I also notice a slight sulfur smell with a breeze and wondered what is below. I now realize the path is suspended in darkness and the breeze is blowing across a vast canyon. Perhaps that was the cause of the echo earlier when I landed. There are support ropes tethered to the guide ropes on both sides that wrap around the bottom of the rock pathway like a suspension bridge. I notice these support ropes every 100 feet or so along the path, so there are many along the way. I stand up and move side to side until it starts to sway a bit, and it feels solid as it sways. I'm now nervous as it keeps swaying, and so I stand still until the swaying finally stops. I carefully keep walking, and it keeps lighting up and going dark behind me. There's a slight decline making the walk easy, and my instincts tell me to keep pushing forward. I walk on the hanging pathway for some time, and then in the distance I see a large canyon wall glowing slightly, lighting up the rock shelf in the middle of the wall, and a dark crevice below it. The little cobblestone path with the guide ropes leads to the middle edge of the rock platform, and two large stones secure the suspension ropes. Ahead is a rock wall blocking the whole canyon. I start to wonder if I took the wrong path. And then as I get closer, suddenly there is a winged angel standing in front of the large wall. I wonder if he is waiting to give me a ride over the wall. I step off the suspension bridge onto the rock platform, and the ground lights up dimly, and the small bridge goes dark as soon as I step off of it. Now it is complete darkness on the bridge side, but the dimly lit rock platform is a relief. I make my way up to the angel facing the solid rock wall, noticing the wind is twirling back from the wall, causing the angel's hair to blow in the wind. I wondered if he was just enjoying the breeze across his face. His back is to me as I walk up, and his wings fold in behind his back, and I say, "Excuse me, angel, am I dead?" The angel turns to me, and I am blinded for a moment by his bright, radiant face, and his eyes were like a deep blue ocean. His voice was soft and loving as he put his hand on my shoulder and smiled. "I have been waiting here for you. I am glad you chose the narrow and cramped road. To answer your question, son, you are not dead. If you make it out of here, you will be put on trial. Your prayer was powerful, and it bumped other prayers and put you to the front of the line. What is it you said in your prayer, son?" I thought for a moment and said, "I asked God for help with all of these disquieting thoughts. And then I felt tears rolling down my cheek and said, 'Please help me, God.' And then bang, boom, swoosh, and I was here." Yes, my friend, a prayer is powerful when used persistently. You have been praying for 10 years for this one moment in time, and now you're up to bat. The problem you're facing, Mr. Doe, since leaving the Kingdom Hall, you have been lost spiritually for 10 years. And this is why you are here, to clear the roadblocks of spirituality in your mind, so you can see what is on the other side. Many do not make it past this huge wall throughout their lives. So if you cannot figure this out, just walk back on the dark path that led you here, and you will automatically fall back into your old life. If you wish to proceed along the path to your trial, you have to figure out which door to walk through. Chapter 4. We might not get through this because we only have 30 minutes. Spiritual darkness. I look at the wall closely, and sure enough, there are the outlines of 3 rock doors on the side of the large rock wall. Centered above the doors on the wall, it says spiritual death. The doors are about 6 feet tall with an arch above each. There's a flat area above each door as I get closer to see what is engraved there. I ask the angel to boost me up, and he does, so I blow all the dust away to see the engravings. The first door is marked Sheol, and under it says a place to think. The next door reads Hades, and under it says the unseen place. And the third door was marked Gehenna, the valley of flowers. The angel says, to overcome this wall of death, you have to choose the right door and then walk through. Once you enter, you cannot turn back, for the door will draw you through the rock to the other side. Do not touch the doors. You have only one chance. Once you touch it, there is no returning, so be careful, my friend. He then says, if you choose the wrong door, you may fall into darkness and only by a prayer to God will you be lifted from your spiraling nightmare. The other two doors of death at least give you a resurrection to life. The angel then flies up to the sky and disappears into the cloud. I am standing there, dumbfounded by everything. And thinking about it, the angel is right. I have been in spiritual limbo since quitting the Kingdom Hall. And I know that is why I'm in this position. The wall is labeled spiritual death. And I remembered the elders saying it is worse than death itself. I study each of the doors, and I really like the third door. I would like to go for a walk right now in a valley of flowers. I could just imagine the sweet aroma of spring flowers everywhere. I get up close to the third door, and I study the engravings on Gehenna. I know Hades is not a good place to go. That is not the right door. Sheol, well, I can't remember what this place is about. The engraving says it's a place to think. Well, it's not a bad idea. I can just go there and think about what's next. Okay, it's between door 1 and door 3. The middle door, Hades, is a trap. I just know it. I like the valley idea, remembering the Bible book of Psalms talks about the valley of something. What is that valley of shadow? That is a valley of shadow of death. Oh no, I cannot go to Gehenna. I may never get out of the valley of the shadow of death. Not sure how that Psalms goes, but I cannot take a chance. Wow, that was a close one. If my hunch is right, my only choice is at Sheol door. I guess it will give me a place to think. What should I do? I will pick up a rock and I will throw it through the third door and see if it lands on a flower or something. I pick up a rock and I pitch it at the third door, expecting it to pass through. All of a sudden, the rock came back at me like a bullet ricocheting off a wall, and I immediately jumped up. It passed between my knees and landed behind me. Wow, was that ever close? I better just decide on a door and quit messing around. Okay, I'm going for it. I will go for the first door. Yes, the first door of Sheol it is. I'm going to make a strong entrance and walk in. But what if I bounce back? Maybe this is all a trick or something. Perhaps if I touch it lightly, it will respond different. I carefully balance on one leg, and then I stick my other foot up to the wall, and with the tips of my toes, just touch it slightly. Suddenly, the door loses its mass and starts to suck the rest of my body in. Within the blink of an eye, I'm thrown to the other side. I land abruptly on my back, and the angel is standing there laughing. I'm laying there, and the angel extends a hand to help me up. I brush the dust off, and the angel says, most people just walk in. Then when it sucks them through, they're still on 2 legs. You, however, had an interesting entry. That is what made me laugh. I have never seen an entry like that before. I turn around to see that we were on a shelf on the side of a mountain with a rock wall that I just walked or was just sucked through. Looking back at the wall, I could see the outline of 3 doors, and the door marked Gehenna had no platform. It dropped to a dark void. What if I had fallen out of that door down to the valley? I would have fallen to my spiritual death. Wow, that was close. The other 2 doors, Sheol and Hades, led to the same platform we stood on. I look back at the angel and he says, your odds were good, 2 out of 3, but I was worried for a while when you were eyeing up that Gehenna door. He looks straight at me and laughs. It was a good thing you misapplied that scripture in Psalms 23. I ask, why is that? Well, when you thought of the word valley, your mind made a parallel to that scripture. At first, you were drawn to that famous passage, but then the word death made you afraid. The whole chapter shows how God can help us out of the valley of death. He is silent for a bit and then adds, do you realize there are many valleys that God can rescue you out of? But if you fall into the judgment of Gehenna, not even God can reverse his own judgment in that valley. He puts his hand on my shoulder and says, the Spirit must be with you, son. And he laughs again. I ask the angel, why do both doors land on this platform? He explains that Sheol and Hades are both names of the common grave. And he smiles and adds, fortunately for you, Jesus holds the key for these types of deaths. We are standing on the rock platform, and I start to sweat from the smoggy heat lifting from the dark crevasse. Standing and trying to look through the pitch darkness, I see nothing. Taking a deep breath, I breathe in the most awful tasting, thick, gross air. It smells like rotten egg, and I start to gag and gag. I thought I was going to vomit, and then the angel yells out, "Smile, smile." And I look at him, and he's smiling. He says, "The only way to cancel out the gag reflex from the stench is a smile. Smile as you walk, and you will quit gagging." I force a smile, and sure enough, I feel better. We stand for a moment, and I can smell more of the rotten stench blowing up from the valley. And so I ask the angel with a smile, "Can we just go?" Chapter 5, Guiding Souls. The angel looks at me with a natural smile and says, "I was waiting for you to ask." And he grabs my hand and says, "Follow me closely, and I will lead you out from this pit of spiritual darkness." It is completely dark all around. The only light is from the radiance of the angel. He is like a torch in the night, leading the way up a jagged rock trail stretching upwards on the side of a vast canyon wall. I asked the angel, "Please, sir, I'm getting tired, and I was wondering, how far do we have to walk?" He says, "It will seem like a day and a night, but be on guard for the nephesh and the psyche. Will they kill me?" He laughs. "No, they are the living souls of animals that reside in these canyons, and they are harmless for the most part. But if they catch you off guard, you can fall to your death." I continue to follow the angel for some time in silence, and the trail is rough, and there are rocks along the path. I have to watch where I step. The path is wide enough for one person only. So I follow the angel carefully, watching each of his feet. The light from his hair only gives off a slight glow, so I have to work hard to keep up to his pace. I am thinking more and more about our conversation, and I ask, "What is the difference between the two souls?" We walk for some time in silence. I'm doing my best, struggling up the steep, jagged path to keep up. And I ask again, and he finally stops, turning to explain, "They can both read your five senses, therefore helping you if you're afraid or in trouble. The flying nephesh can give you guidance from above, and the four-legged psyche can guide you on the ground." He pauses and then asks, "But only if the Holy Spirit is in you." "Well," I ask, "is the Holy Spirit in me?" The angel looks at me really hard, and then he looks me up and down, and then he goes around and looks at my backside, and then puts a finger to his chin and stands staring at me, pondering something. I say to him, "Well, what do you think?" He is silent, still pondering, and finally says, "I cannot read what's in men's hearts. Only God can." I ask him, "Then what were you looking at on me?" "I was looking at your excess weight, especially in your stomach. It's not flat like us angels. And according to my calculations, this walk will do you good. Let us keep walking. We have to get your heart rate up to at least 90 and keep it there. And we have a long way to go." We walk for some time. My heart is pounding. I can feel a sweat coming over me. And I notice the trail gets tougher as we climb higher. I'm still tailing close behind, thinking he sure tells it the way it is. My stomach is not as flat as the angels. I chuckle to myself. If I were escorting people up cliffs every night, then I'd be in good shape too. Finally, after walking for some time, I ask, "What happens if I don't have the Holy Spirit? What happens to those souls you speak of?" The angel keeps walking. This time he does not turn and explain anything. So I ask again and again, only to be answered by silence. So we just keep walking, and I stare at the dim light of his hair, and I can only see the silence of darkness all around. It was like a restless dream where I keep walking alone, and I'm lost in the darkness of time. And I just keep walking and walking, and I see people not talking. I'm mesmerized by each of his steps. It's the only sound I can hear, other than the odd pebble kicking up from his sandals, rolling off the trail, making little clinking noises as they tumble into the darkness below. I can hardly see the color of feathers on his wings, for his long blonde hair dangles down his back, covering part of his wings. I stare at the hair for something to focus on, and at least it takes my mind off the steep climb. I notice small, intricate golden braids, many of them that dangle down his back. Each braid is like a string of golden lights, offering just enough radiance to see only a few feet around. At the end of each braid, there was a different color stone. I watched for some time, counting 12 stones at the end of 12 braids. The trail gets tougher, and to take my mind off my sore muscles, I stare at the braids, mesmerized for a moment in time. I feel as though I'm floating, and then suddenly, as the angel walks, the braids flop back and forth, banging into each other, causing golden sparks to arc across his white feathers. My mind drifts, and I start to miss my wife, and I wonder if I will ever see her again. Maybe she is waiting in bed for me, or what if she is out looking for me? I hope she is not worried when she finds that I am gone. Or what if I'm lying in bed dead and I'm being judged in heaven? I'm not sure, but I am stuck on this journey in my mind, and I cannot seem to stop what I'm experiencing. He finally stops at a little ledge and says, "It's important to focus on the trail, so if something sneaks up on you, you are not startled, and you do not fall to your death. I cannot save you. I can only guide the way for you to the top, and then we will discuss the rest of the journey." We both just sit in silence for some time. I thought this was a safe journey. Now I'm feeling quite worried. Before I start with another series of nervous questions, the angel turns to me and puts his hand on my head while he helps me calm down. Still holding his hand on my head, he says, "To help slow down your busy mind, I have commanded your tongue to speak in rhymes. It will only last for some of the time, and then your tongue I will unbind." Then he turns around and starts walking up the trail at a pretty steady pace for an angel athlete. As I'm thinking about what he said, I noticed the words inside my head. We had been walking in the darkness for some time, and I kept falling further and further behind. I keep pushing myself, but I'm so out of shape that I have to stop and let the angel carry on. I am standing there panting and then start ranting. "Hello up ahead, my angel friend, my angel light. Can you please help me with all of my plight? Can we have a rest? You are going too fast, and you're being a pest, and my voice is rasp. I cannot keep up to your pace. Can you just show me your face? Hey, angel, can you hear me, please? For you, it's a breeze. Just help me, please. I'm about to wheeze." He stops and yells back, "You've been slacking. There is a rest stop up ahead. I'll wait for you there. Make your way without fear, and may God's good grace help you keep up your pace." I slowly inch my way forward in fear of falling off the path. Finally, the trail gets brighter. As I walk ahead, it gets lighter. He says there's an area just up ahead with only a few rocks to sit on to take a rest. Just follow me closely, but go very slowly, or this could be your very last test. We get up to it, and we each sit on a rock. The angel's face lights up the area like a campfire while I sit, trying to catch my breath. Most of that stench is below, and the air is more breathable up higher. The only light I can find is from the angel's hair. It's like fire. I tell the angel it would be a good lookout point, except it's dark everywhere. And so I ask, does the sun ever come out in this valley? He responds, "No. This is the valley of darkness and death. We do not see light until we pass all of the tests. This is your test to get you out of spiritual darkness. If you get out, it will be a miracle regardless." I look at the angel as he stares at me back. He glows in the dark, and the rest is all black. He spoke with a rhyme for some of the time. When he puts down his foot, the ground just shook. I know he is strong, so I will not do him wrong. And I ask, "How old are you?" He explains, "I was born many millenniums ago, during the light of a day, when the earth started breathing and we made a man out of clay." The angel gets up and chuckles. "It's time to go, son. We've had enough fun." Now fully rested, I follow him up the slanted trail on the side of the mountain, and we slowly work our way to the top. I am staring at his leather sandals, similar to what Jesus wore, I'm assuming. Following his steps closely, I know where to step myself. I rely on his radiance for a flashlight, but it only lights up a few feet around. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a screeching object flies up from the dark crevice and grazes my head. I scream and I lose my footing on the trail, and I fell off the trail yelling, "Help! Help! Help!" was sliding down the slope. I felt a rock by my leg and I grab it with both hands, which stops my descent. I'm about 50 feet below the trail and I can see the faint glow of the angel looking down at me, and I ask, "Are you going to help me?" And he says, "You haven't asked yet, so please do not fret." I thought crying for help was the same as asking. He chuckles, he hovers down, grabs my waist and yanks me up onto the trail. Then he asks, "Did the flying nefesh touch you? Is that a dreadful thing? Am I going to die?" He smiles, "No, son, but please answer my pun. Yes, it grazed my head, but look, I'm still not dead. They only ever make human contact if the Holy Spirit is in you." He puts his hand on my shoulder, saying, "You might just make it, son. The journey's not done." He continues, "When they touch you, it means your journey has more tests." But then I confess, "Didn't you have this whole trip planned?" He says, "No, my son, your journey has just begun." We continue to walk as I think about everything said, and I ask, "What are the plains of the wilderness? Are they far away?" We will walk for a bit until I see a few rocks. The angel sits, and so I clean out my socks. This time he grabs both my hands and says, "I am not permitted to go through the plains of the wilderness. I cannot help you for this next part of the journey. You are on your own. Not even God's Holy Spirit can help you while you wander through the plains of the wilderness. On these plains, you will be tested many times by the evil one. The evil one is a trickster, and each person will be tested according to their weaknesses." He quits speaking. His eyes sparkle with a blue glow, and then he sings me this song. "You will be tested against your flesh, then your eyes will deceive the rest. Negative thoughts will be your fight, further darkening your desert plight. If you pass the devil's test, you may earn the river's rest. The journey is long and hot. The test of Yahweh you may have forgot. He is the one who put you here. Please remember that he is near. Only by the river of life will you find the way to beat your strife. Never drink the water of death, and the promised land will be your breath." Chapter 6, Tests in the Wilderness. So we're going to end up here. Chapter 6, there's actually 46 chapters in the book. As you can see, there's a little bit of poetry. 46 chapters. There's 282 pages. It's a novel. And so that's the first 6 chapters. And then chapter 6 is a test in the wilderness. It's a fun story. And I think you guys will really enjoy it, especially as XJWs. So after this here, stay online, and we're going to have a live chat, so you guys can come online and chat, and we can get to know each other. So there you go. We'll see you in a bit.